So, good morning to all of you, BT fifth year semester students, fifth semester students. Today, I am going to discuss about the gene libraries and also the other parts that is given in your syllabus. That what are the screening strategies for for identification of our desired DNA. Okay, our desired protein product. So let's get started now. Okay, so about the gene libraries, now I am going to teach you in this lecture line by line, which are important for you to discuss, which are important for your examinations, and also to understand the aspects of this is one of the important aspects of genetic engineering. So it will be helpful for you for the future um, MSc. If you go for MSc in biotechnology, then you have to also go through these sections also practically also in MSc classes. Okay, so let's get started now. So what do you mean by gene libraries? Just like we know, library are collection of books. Many books are being collected, whether it is from the science section or arts section or commerce section or of general knowledge section. Different types of books are present in the library. In the same way, genomic library or gene library is the collection of genes which are normally stored, but here they are stored in certain living organism system. And for maintaining this library, we need certain recombinant tools, recombinant DNA tools, or you can say genetic engineering tools to achieve this process. So by definition, it is saying the collection of DNA fragments, specifically genes, from a particular species represents gene libraries. So when we are collecting the DNA fragments, especially the genes only, not the unwanted DNA from a particular person, for a particular person, or you can say particular species, that is representing as gene library. Okay, and the creation or construction of gene libraries, broadly called as genomic libraries, is accomplished by isolating the complete genome, that is entire DNA from a cell, which is then cut into fragments by using restriction enzymes and cloned in suitable vectors. So if you want to do genomic library, if you want to collect the entire genome and store that entire genome in the form of library, in future you want to isolate that particular fragment, and you want to um, observe the sequence and carry out the genetic engineering functions. For that, to construct genomic library, what we have to do is first we have to isolate the complete genome. So the first step is we have to isolate the complete genome, the entire DNA from a cell. Then that genome is cut into fragments. They are cut into fragments. Now this can be achieved by using restriction enzymes. As we know that restriction enzymes, or better to say restriction endonuclease enzymes, they identify certain sites present on the DNA called restriction sites, and on observing that restriction site they cleave, or you can say they cut the DNA within that site or close to that site. And after creating a series of fragments like this, they are then cloned in suitable vectors. Now here we can use plasmid as a vector, or you can use virus as a vector. Well, yes, virus can also be used as a vector by removing their pathogenic part, but as virus are very small, So transformation can be very easy, while if you want to target that virus vector into a suitable target host, but the problem is that viral genome is very small and only small amount of DNA can be inserted into the vector, not large DNA. So that's a problem. Or you can use bacteriophage as a vector, right? Different types of vectors are there which has not been properly studied. I will study in detail later on. Okay, I am finishing this part for you to get prepared quickly for examinations. Now, after cloning them in suitable vectors, the vectors, how they are cloned normally by inserting the desired DNA fragment into the vectors. Now, vectors are now allowed to transfect to the target cells. Okay, target host cells where the vectors will replicate inside that host cell, and then the specific clone carrying our desired target DNA can be identified by screening process, obviously by a process called screening. By a process called screening, we will identify that DNA, or the target DNA which is carrying by that particular vector in the host cell, and then they are isolated and finally they are characterized. So normally, this is the way. In this way, library of genes can be prepared. So again I repeat, how they are prepared. First we have to isolate the complete genome, the entire DNA from a cell. Now this can be achieved by using various techniques like you can use phenol chloroform, phenol chloroform technique, phenol chloroform extraction technique, okay, or by other techniques are also there. And after isolating that entire genome, what we will do, after isolating the entire genome from the cell, then that genome, that DNA is then cut into series of fragments. Now this can be done by using a series of restriction enzymes. Restriction enzymes normally cut the DNA at specific sites called restriction sites. Like for example, one of the example of restriction site that normally used to be said of EcoR1 is G double A double T C 5 prime G double A double T C. So by observing the restriction site, by observing that sequence of restriction site, restriction enzyme will immediately cleave at that site or close to that site. And then these target DNA are the fragment DNA are then cloned properly with suitable vectors. So they are first inserted with in suitable vectors by the same process, cleaving with same restriction enzyme, and then inserted them in vectors, and then these vectors are allowed to transfect or to transform into the host cell. Generally we use bacterial cell as a host cell here, where these vectors will replicate and eventually it will replicate your that DNA, particular DNA fragments which is the vector is carrying. Then the specific clone carrying our desired target DNA can be identified. Just like in library, we search specific books. So we search specific books from the rack of books. Then we pull it out and we study them on the study table on library. Just like that, here in genomic library, what we do in gene library, what we do, the specific clone, the specific clone which is carrying our target DNA, it can also be identified. It can be identified by proper screening process, SCREENING. So by proper screening process, we can able to identify our target DNA carried by the vector. Then they are isolated, then they are further isolated and then characterized for their sequence. or for their, if we meant to for production of their proteins, if our main target is expression of that gene. Okay, so in this way library of genes or clones can be appropriately considered as gene bank for an entire genome of a species can be constructed. So in this way you can create a library of genes whenever we want that specific DNA fragment to be identified, to be expressed. We have to first identify that which vector is carrying that particular target DNA fragment by screening process. Now screening process are of many types. Okay, you will see later on after construction of the genomic library and cDNA library, you will see. And then we will identify them, we will isolate that particular vector carrying that DNA, and we uh, clone that DNA. Okay, or the clone, or we can clone that DNA fragment for in order for expression of that DNA. Okay, if our main target is objective is to express that DNA to form protein. Okay, now the size of the genomes are in different species are variable. Well, if you see in the table 9.1, the size of the genomes, genome means the entire DNA. The size of the different genomes in different species are variable. So they are different from each other. The length is drastically different from one another. And a complete gene library for each organism contain all genomic DNA. So if you want to make a complete gene library, that means the complete entire genomic DNA will be present. Remember, a complete gene library means all the genomic DNA will be present. That simply means genomic DNA simply means what? It will contain all the DNA, and the DNA contain the non-coding regions also. It contain the non-coding regions also, as well as it contains the coding regions also. Okay, so for genomic library it contain both of these regions, but scientists have seen that some of the genomes of organisms have very huge genome. So preparation of library construction in case of genomic library construction is rather difficult. So what they do, they go for cDNA library process. What is cDNA library? Well, you know about the cDNA. Well, cDNA is made from RNA. Well, when DNA is transcribed, when DNA undergoes transcription, when DNA undergoes transcription, it forms RNA. And that RNA is processed, called post transcriptional modification, or also called as RNA processing. RNA processing to form a final mature mRNA. Okay, to form a final mature RNA. Well, by the name RNA processing means we modify the RNA, we prepare the RNA for the translation process to begin. Okay, like in RNA processing, what happened? In RNA processing, the 5 prime cap is added to the 5 prime end of the RNA done by 3 enzymes. Then splicing process is done. Splicing process is done. In splicing process, the introns, which are the non-coding regions, are removed out from the exons, which are the coding regions, and the exons are joined. And the exons are joined in different combinations to what we call as RNA shuffling. Okay, so RNA shuffling also occur as a result of splicing. RNA shuffling also occurs to make a different combination of the exons, and at the 3 prime end there will be polyadenylation. Polyadenylation. That means a polyadenylate tail, multiple adenine residues will be added to the 3 prime end of that mRNA. Now that mRNA, after RNA processing, what we get is mature mRNA which contain only the coding regions or exons, right? It contain only the coding regions, right? This mRNA is isolated. This mRNA is isolated first. It is isolated, and after isolation, from this mRNA, from this mature mRNA, we convert them. We use this mRNA as a template to convert into DNA called as cDNA by the process what we known as, you know the name of the process, reverse transcription. Reverse transcription. And this cDNA is then again converted, used as a template to form double stranded DNA, dsDNA. Okay, so now this DNA can be used for the construction of our gene library. This DNA is now become, this double stranded DNA what we get is now smaller than the genomic DNA, and it contain only the functional genes. It only contain the coding regions of the DNA which will code for particular proteins, particular enzymes. So this is the main trick that scientists want to do. They want only to identify, they want to only construct the genes which codes for proteins, and that's why they go for cDNA library. Okay, that's why they go for cDNA library. Library, sorry for that. That's why they go for cDNA library construction. So gene library are of two types. One is genomic library and another one is called cDNA library. But in genomic library there is also advantage because we want to identify the regulatory functions of a gene, right? For that also we, genomic library is especially important. But as large quantities of genes, large quantities of DNA are being isolated and being cloned and fragmented by using restriction enzymes, so maintenance of the gene library is a little bit difficult. So this table shows different organisms that contain their genome. See, so much huge. If you see the genome size of human, well, the genome size of human is 3.2 into 10 to the power 6 kilobase pair, and out of this huge length of DNA, a few regions of the DNA codes for proteins. It has been estimated that in humans, about 95% of the DNA are said to be non coding. Only 5% of the DNA are coding. And and how so much of proteins can be prepared from that 5% of DNA is due to that exon shuffling, or what we call as RNA shuffling, where the exons are joined with different combinations to form different sort of mature mRNA that will give rise to different translated protein product. Okay, so that's not the topic today. We are actually um, now create a gene library, how gene library is being created. Okay, so let's get started. So, in creating a gene library, what we have to do? Directly, they have said, that's mentioned the steps. The DNA from the source organism is first digested by restriction endonuclease enzymes. So, first we have to isolate the DNA from a particular organism. Say I have isolated the DNA from mouse cell, and then they are digested by using restriction endonuclease. Various type of restriction endonuclease enzymes at different combinations are used to make a series of fragments of DNA, like for example EcoR1 has been said, and result in series of fragments. Now it is desirable to create conditions so that partial digestion and not complete digestion occurs. It is saying that here we will not completely digest the DNA with restriction enzyme, we will partially digest the DNA. So, partial digestion of the DNA is done, not complete digestion. The what is partial digestion? It simply means that if this is your genome, well, I have to draw. If this is your DNA, and suppose at three locations you have that restriction enzyme site for EcoR1, suppose in these regions, so suppose is 5 prime 3 prime. So suppose in these three sites that we have make in arrow, pink arrow, suppose these are the sites where restriction endonuclease enzyme EcoR1 has the site, where EcoR1 will cleave, will cut that region and produce three fragments, right? So that's what we call as complete digestion. Complete digestion means here the EcoR1 identify these three. Here this EcoR1 will identify these three restriction sites and will cleave and produce three fragments. What we have, I have drawn. But in case of partial digestion, what it does, we will not completely use the we will not completely digest that whole DNA with one enzyme. So what we will do, we will actually partially digest this genome, this DNA with this enzyme. Like for example, the EcoR1 uh, identify these sites and cleave. Okay, then it identify these sites and cleave, but no, we withdraw that EcoR1 from here, from this side, from this position. Thus this site remains unfragmented. Okay, this site remains unfragmented. Okay, so in this way your fragments are reduced, the number of fragments that are used to be done which will reduced. Previously what was it, if three sites was recognized by EcoR1, then four fragments was used to be produced, right? If you see properly, four fragments was used to be produced. One fragment is this, another fragment is this, another fragment is this, another fragment is this. But as we have withdrawn from here, so only three fragments are produced. So this is called what we call as partial digestion. We are not completely we are not completely digesting, or we are not completely cleaving the DNA with the same restriction enzyme. We are partially cleaving the DNA, not completely. Okay, I think you have understood. um, Better to see the picture. When you will see the picture, the given in the next page, you will able to understand. So here what we have said, so partial digestion is being done and not complete digestion. So partial digestion by restriction enzymes are being carried out, And by partial digestion by restriction endonuclease, by this way, all possible DNA fragments of variable size can be produced. So we can create a series of different DNA fragments. Okay. Now this partial digestion, this partial digestion of DNA using a restriction endonuclease has been shown in the figure 9.1. Let us see the figure. Let us see the figure so that we can understand what I have tried to say. So normally you can see here that here in this DNA, which is shown by a simple line, and the scissors, the image of scissors are the restriction enzyme sites where restriction enzyme, specific restriction enzyme will cleave, will cut at that region. Okay. So what it says here that uh, here the cleavage occur, or the cut or the sites where restriction enzyme will done, it will done in different sites, and it will result in different DNA fragments of varying length, and some of them fragments will be large, some of the fragments will be small. Okay. And in practice, a combination of different restriction enzymes are used to digest the source DNA to release a large number of DNA fragments, and the desired DNA fragment is then isolated and then cloned. So you can see, suppose these are the restriction site for a particular enzyme. Say for example, this is the restriction site for the, I am giving a good example of eco R1. I have said before also, little bit ago, I have drawn the figure. Now, there are three sites for eco R1. That means this region will these three regions will contain the same sequence G double A double T C, uh, 5 prime 3 prime, and in the opposite complementary strand it will be C double T double A G. Okay. And restriction endonuclease enzyme generally will cleave within this G and A region. Okay. So this sequence contain in three sites, let's say for example, and here what we see a different combination of fragments, right? How it is possible? It is possible due to partial digestion. Like for example, the restriction endonuclease enzyme for eco R1, let's say for example, cleave in this site, but we withdraw that restriction enzymes so that these sites remain unaffected. Thus, we get a large fragment here. In the next combination, what we done, we carry out the restriction digestion in this site, in this site. That's why we uh, no. In the second figure, we have not allowed the restriction enzyme to digest in this site. We allow them to digest in this site. That's why we get two fragments, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay. In this way, you can see by partial digestion, of using the restriction enzymes, we create a series of fragments. We create a series of fragments of varying length. Some of the fragments are large, some of the fragments are small. Okay. And thus, uh, by combination of different restriction enzymes, like for example I have said eco R1, we can use a combination of other enzymes, like there are also in restriction enzymes like BAM-H1. BAM-H1 is there, HIND3 is there, HIND3 is there, SAL1 is there, ALU1 is there. So by the combination of different restriction enzymes, we create this type of series of fragments. of different length, and the desired fragments can be isolated and then cloned. Okay, like for example, I want my fragment, our desired fragment is located between 2 and 3, suppose. So that's why we have used different combinations. So you can see by different combination we get this fragment now that contains our desired DNA 2 and 3, let's say for example. Okay, now in the G figure, complete digestion has been done. That's why four fragments are being observed. Like where we can see, if one fragment we get, this is the next fragment, this is the next fragment, and this is the next fragment. So in the G figure, complete digestion has been shown, but the other figures, partial digestion has been mentioned here, so that we can get our desirable DNA fragment. For example, let's say this region is our desired DNA fragment that we get. Further, this fragment is isolated and then they are cloned in suitable vectors. So in this way, partial digestion is being carried out. Okay, now this cannot be observed by looking. Okay, you cannot see them. Okay, that how much the restriction enzyme has gone, but according to the time taken for the restriction enzyme to digest in the lab, we can able to identify that this much time will be required to completely digest the restriction enzyme for that particular genome. Okay, and if it is an unknown genome, then we have to observe it by sequencing strategies, by observing their sequence, right? I think you have understood what I have said. I have repeated this 2 times now. So just go through this, just study this part. So this is the first important aspect of making a genomic library. Okay. Now what it has says. Well, other techniques are also being given, like Maniatis technique for creating gene library, and establishing gene library for humans have also been shown. Okay, so let us study this one also. So this is the thing. Now we have to insert that this series of fragments of DNA as created by partial digestion of restriction enzymes into a vector, suitable vectors. But other techniques are also been mentioned here, like your Maniatis technique for creating gene library. Now this technique, which is I am going to say here now, will actually developed by Maniatis et al. Et al means its colleagues. Okay, its colleagues, those who support for finding out this technique in 1978. What Maniatis have done for creating gene library, he have used two restriction endonuclease enzymes to cut the target DNA. Okay, and obviously he have done partial digestion to create a combination of different DNA fragments, and out of many combinations there may be such combination which contain our target DNA fully intact, target DNA fragment, and allows the formation of majority of DNA fragments with a length of 10 to 30 kb. Now by this technique he have used two different restriction enzymes to cleave or to cut the target DNA, and he follows the same technique what I have mentioned just now, partial digestion. That means he allow the restriction enzymes to partially cleave or you can say partially cut those regions of the DNA by not completely cleaving the DNA in their restriction sites. Thus it creates a series of different fragments, and it also contain our target DNA as well. and the length of the DNA fragment is between 10 to 30 kb, which is ideal for us. Why? Because small DNA fragments are preferred to insert into suitable vectors. Large fragments are a bit difficult to insert in a suitable vector. It's just like uh, in a small door, large number of people are going to be inserted. That's not possible. So that's why that's according to the size of the vectors, according to the size of the genome of the vector, we have to properly insert our gene of interest of suitable size also. Then the fragments are frequently overlapping and they can be fractioned by gel electrophoresis. Well, after cleaving by restriction enzymes, there will be a problem, and the problem is fragment overlapping. One DNA fragment will overlap the other DNA fragment, and to overcome this problem, they have isolated all the fragments after restriction digestion, and then they are subjected to gel electrophoresis. Well, we know very well in gel electrophoresis these DNA fragments will be separated based on their size of fragments, right? And then the isolated fragments are then inserted to the lambda phage. Here he have used lambda phage as a vector and clone these fragments to make a gene library. So very well it has been said, in this Maniatis technique for gene library, what we have done in this technique, we have first used two restriction endonuclease to cleave the target DNA, and here also partial digestion is done. Complete digestion is not done, so that we get a series of different DNA fragments with our target DNA fragment as well. And the length of this target DNA length of your DNA fragments is approximately 10 to 30 kb, which is ideal for insertion them into a suitable vector, not PBR 322. Okay, PBR 322 vector that you have studied in your class 12, that I have also studied, I have also mentioned with you in your previous classes. um, its gene insert size is very small actually, because it is of small in length. Okay, but if we use lambda phage vector or bacteriophage vector as he have used, uh, they can able to take large fragments about up to 30 kb, and then these fragments are frequently overlapping. After your restriction digestion, you see the fragments are overlapping with one another. And why they overlap? Because of complementary, they try to base pair, okay, somehow. And for separation of these fragments according to their length, we resolve them in agarose gel electrophoresis. So by gel electrophoresis we separate these fragments, and the isolated fragments are then inserted to the lambda phage vector, and then they are cloned. So I hope you have understood. I have repeated two times what it means to say in the Maniatis technique. Okay, so now we will discuss about the establishment of gene library for humans. Gene library can also be prepared for humans as well. Although the size of the human genome is 3.2 into 10 to the power 6 kilobases, right? So human cellular DNA, which is the entire genome, may be subjected to digestion by restriction endonuclease like EcoR1. So our human genome can also be subjected to digestion by the restriction enzymes. Say for example, we digest them by EcoR1, and we get a series of fragments on an average of about 4 kb in size. So our fragments will be about 4 kb in size, very large, 4000 nitrogenous base. And each human genome chromosome contain about 100,000 kilobase, can be cut into about 2500 DNA fragments. So as our size of the genome is very large, within a single chromosome, it contain about 100,000 kilobases, and out of that one chromosome, we can prepare up to 25,000 DNA fragments. Each of the fragments will be of about 4 kb in size. So out of the entire human genome, we can prepare human DNA fragments of about at least 4 kb in size, average. It can be more, it can be less. 4 kb means 4,000 nitrogenous base, which is very ideal for us. We can insert them into suitable vector to carry out our experiments. Okay, and as humans have 23 different chromosomes, there are total of 575,000 fragments of 4 kb in length. Okay, now imagine we have 23 different chromosomes. Okay, and out of these 23 different chromosomes, if one chromosome approximately produce 100,000, sorry, if one chromosome can produce approximately 25,000 different DNA fragments, 23 chromosomes can produce approximately about to 575,000 DNA fragments, and each of these fragments have an average length of 4 kb. Average length of 4 kb. Okay, and among these 575,000 DNA fragments, let's say our gene of interest is your insulin gene. That has to be isolated, that has to be cloned in a vector, and has to be expressed later on for commercial production of recombinant insulin. So now is the selection of a suitable vector and then cloning process. Generally, for cloning into a host cell, we use E. coli. Well, every time when we are studying recombinant DNA technology, we use this model organism called E. coli. It is a harmless bacterium. Well, some strains of E. coli are dangerous. Like E. coli have a pathogenic strain which can cause you unlimited dysentery if you engulf it. There are many strains, or you can say many families of E. coli which are harmless to humans. They live in the gut of humans and it is most commonly used. So, plasmids from the E. coli are isolated, they are modified by inserting a suitable selection marker where we can able to observe the vector that whether it is properly our desired DNA is present or not. And the plasmids after isolation, they are digested with the same restriction enzymes as was used for cutting human genome to form open plasmids. So these restriction enzymes after these plasmids after isolation from E. coli cell, as E. coli cell are harmless bacteria, so they are used as a host cell for cloning. So the plasmids from the E. coli are isolated, they are modified, and they are digested with same restriction enzymes, the restriction enzymes that was used for cutting the human genome to form open plasmids. Okay, now the human chromosomal DNA fragments and open plasmids are joined, or you can say ligated. Ligated. They are ligated to produce recombinant plasmids. These plasmids contain different DNA fragments of humans. So what we have done, we use the same restriction enzymes to cleave the plasmids as we have isolated from E. coli. And why we have used the same restriction enzymes to generate the same type of uh, say to generate same type of cohesive ends, okay, that are normally cleaved during restriction enzyme digestion, so that they can match with the same restriction enzyme fragment. Now, human chromosomal DNA and the open plasmids are joined to produce recombinant plasmids. These plasmids contain different DNA fragments of humans, and the recombinant plasmids are then inserted into E. coli, and the cell is allowed to clone. The cell is allowed to multiply. Just like in microbiology, we incubate the E. coli cells in an incubator with at 28 degrees Celsius, I think 28 maybe, and at that optimal temperature, E. coli cells, they divide rapidly. So when the E. coli cells are dividing rapidly, that means the plasmids which has been constructed where we have inserted our desired DNA, now that plasmids are, as they are into the E. coli cell, they also multiply, they will also replicate using their replication machinery, and so our desired DNA fragments will also multiply. So including the other fragments as well. So the plasmids contain different DNA fragments of humans, and the recombinant plasmids are then inserted into the E. coli cell, and the cells multiply. As given in the next image, you will see them. So if you look at the figure, then you can able to see. So here you can see the human cells where we have isolated the DNA, the whole genome. Okay, and then by using the restriction endonuclease digestion, we cleave the DNA into series of fragments. Well, only 7 fragments has been shown for simplicity. By the way, we know that about 575,000 different fragments of DNA will be formed, and each of these fragments will be having length of 4 kilobases average on average. On the other hand, you see that E. coli cells are cultured. E. coli cells are cultured, and these E. coli cells, we isolate the plasmids from the E. coli cells, where the plasmids are further digested using the same restriction enzymes as used here also, because to create same type of ends, so that they can the degraded DNA fragments can able to match with that ends and can able to ligate it properly. So thus we create a open plasmids here as written here, and thus we ligate them. Well, ligation is done by using suitable ligase enzyme like DNA ligase, and then these plasmids containing our desirable DNA fragments is then inserted into the host bacterial cells, which are the E. coli cells. Here we can see the E. coli cells are allowed to what? They are allowed to multiply, and after multiplication, the E. coli cells possess all the human DNA fragments now. Thus, we create a type of gene library here. Now, however, if we want to isolate our desired DNA fragment that contains our target DNA of interest, say for say example the 4, then by using selection strategy, by using screening strategy for selection, we have to do screening. For screening process, we have to carry it out. Now screening can be done by various ways. Well, one of the way, plasmids are constructed by having some antibiotic resistance gene property, okay, or some specific products will be produced by that particular plasmid, okay. So as E. coli cells, it must be however remembered that each E. coli cell have different DNA fragments, not all the DNA fragments. All the E. coli cells are put together, what we call as collectively as gene library or genomic library, which contains 575,000 of DNA fragments. Further, this particular, what we are saying, that particular gene of interest will be isolated by the screening process that contain our desirable DNA, and that can be done by a specific process like using suitable probes, using suitable primers, okay, which will complementary bind to the target DNA, or better to say using PCR approach also we can do, because in PCR process what we do, the target DNA is allowed to bind with a suitable primer of small base pair. It will bind, and with the help of a DNA polymerase by taken from Thermus aquaticus, it will allow to elongate. And if this primer specific for the target DNA region is binding and PCR process is occurring, then we can say that that genome contain the target DNA. So by PCR approach or by other techniques like colony hybridization technique, as I will study just a bit after this lecture, colony hybridization. So by colony hybridization technique, we can also use the same procedure for isolation of our desired DNA from the gene library. Okay. So this is how we make gene library. Up to this much we have to study for gene library. Then the screening process is different question actually. Okay. So this image is a simplified diagram. Just recite one time and you will able to understand what I have said. Well, other than plasmids, there are also some other vectors also for the gene library construction. Well, I have not studied this part with you. I will study them later on in the offline classes maybe. Okay, so the other vectors for gene library, in place of plasmids or in place of bacteriophages, as it was in using bacteriophage as a vector, it was actually used by Maniatis et al. Okay, and by using plasmids for creating gene libraries, other vectors are also there for construction of large size gene DNA libraries, and these include your cosmids, bacterial artificial chromosomes, yeast artificial chromosomes are there. So there are different types of plasmids, which there are different types of vectors which can be employed for gene library construction. Like for example, we can use cosmids, we can use bacterial artificial chromosomes, we can use yeast artificial chromosomes, which are assembled to form a modified plasmid, and these are considered as high capacity vectors. Why? Because they can carry large amount of DNA fragment. Although they are ideal for construction of gene libraries, there are many practical difficulties associated with their use. Okay, so some practical difficulties are there. Theoretically it is not difficult because they can carry large amount of DNA. For example, transfection, that means after construction of after you have isolated, after you have ligated your desirable DNA fragment with these vectors like cosmids or yeast artificial chromosome, transfection is a little bit difficult. That means if you want to introduce this recombinant vector into the host bacterial cell or host target cell, it will be rather difficult because it is a large size. So transfection or you can say transformation process is difficult actually. Well, you can also go for PCR as an alternative to genomic library construction. PCR can also be employed for genomic library construction without going all these steps. So without going all these steps using vectors, cleaving them with restriction enzymes, directly you can use PCR process for construction of genomic library. So what does it says? Let us see. It is saying, you know what is PCR? PCR is a technique for amplification of a specific DNA sequence. Now, through PCR, it is a technique for amplification of specific DNA sequence. PCR with primers can be used to isolate the target DNA directly from the genome. Now, using PCR, I can isolate our target DNA directly from the genome by using complementary primers for that target DNA. So PCR serves to as an alternative to the DNA library without going so much of this process. But for long genome, PCR is unsuitable for long genome. So it is saying that as PCR is used for amplification of your specific DNA sequence, with the help of PCR with primers, with specific primers for which can bind with the complementary regions of your target DNA, it can be used to isolate your target DNA directly from the genome. Okay, so thus PCR serves to as an alternative approach to DNA library. Like for example, you have a target DNA, say this one. Okay, now this target DNA, uh, sorry, this is not target DNA, this is your entire genome. Okay, and your target DNA is with lies within this region. So how with the help of PCR you can isolate your target DNA is by construction of site specific primer. So if you can construct primers which are specific for that regions of the target DNA, they will bind by complementary base pairing. Okay, they will bind to the DNA. Sorry for that. It will be like this. Okay, let us say I have to make double strand. Okay, then it will be good. Let's say this is your entire genome, and out of this your target DNA region is suppose located here. Okay, now with the help of site specific primers, we can able to first we have to what we do in PCR, we have to first unwind the DNA, what we call as melting, but denaturation is what we say, where we raise the temperature at 92 degrees Celsius to separate the DNA strands. Okay, so we separate the DNA strands during denaturation, and what it will look like this. It will be look like this. Now, then we use a site specific primers which will bind complementary to the target regions of your DNA, and then by using DNA polymerase taken from Thermus aquaticus, it will able to start the cloning process. Okay, so by this approach we can able to clone, we can able to isolate our target DNA. That's why it is saying that PCR with primers can be used to isolate the target DNA directly from the genome. Thus PCR serves as an alternative to DNA library. Okay, now this is not always possible because PCR technique is employed for short length of DNA only. Well, nowadays long PCR are being employed. So usually in normal PCR, they are suitable for 1 to 2 kb with a maximum of 5 kb. But further, long PCRs are nowadays employed. Okay, long PCRs are nowadays employed which can able to isolate our target DNA. Okay, isolate our target DNA from up to 22 kb. So those genome whose length is about 22 kb, they can be easily be used for the long PCR strategy for isolation of our target DNA from that genome. Okay, okay. So this was what I have said, and it also says that in long PCR, which is used as an alternative for genomic library, there are some modifications in the PCR technique. In long PCR, we have made some modification in PCR, and it is now possible to modify to amplify your DNA fragments up to length of 22 kb from the human genomic DNA. And how it is possible? It is possible as we have used a combination of two different DNA polymerase enzyme. Besides, we have lowered the reaction temperature. Okay, the reaction temperature that we use during the PCR, like for example, we do denaturation up to 92 degrees Celsius, then we do annealing, gradually decreasing the temperature so that the primers can suitably bind with the target regions of your DNA, and then we increase again the temperature for synthesis of the DNA. So we have lowered that reaction temperature that we normally use to do in PCR process, and we have used two different types of DNA enzymes, DNA polymerase enzymes. One of the DNA polymerase have a proofreading activity which will remove the mismatch base. Well, here in long PCR process, we have used such a DNA polymerase that have a proofreading activity that will check the incoming nucleotides that will match perfectly with its complementary template strand. And such PCR, such long PCR can be employed for as an alternative for gene library, and some commercial companies in fact providing the enzyme cocktails ideally suited for long PCR, like for example TAC plus long PCR system. It is marketed by the Stratagene company. This TAC plus long PCR system consists of TAC polymerase, that is the DNA polymerase taken from Thermus aquaticus organism, which is thermostable, which is a proofreading enzyme. Also one type of polymer, also one type of another polymers is also there, PFEE polymerase, which will also in employed in the TAC plus long PCR system. Okay, so by using the long PCR technique, we can actually, what we can do, we can able to it is an alternative to gene library where we can um, isolate our target DNA, and we can able to clone our target DNA as well. So it's a good technique, right? It's a very good technique to be used, but we have to modify the PCR process. As we have seen in long PCR, we have used two different types of polymerase enzyme. Like here we can see the company called Stratagene. It marketed this TAC plus long PCR system where they have used two different type of DNA polymerase. One is TAC polymerase, and they have also used PFEE polymerase. Well, TAC polymerase, you can know it is a thermostable. It is a thermostable DNA polymerase, and PFEE DNA polymerase, it is providing the proofreading mechanism. So there will be no chance of there will be no chance of incorporating mismatches, because by the proofreading activity, it will check the incoming nucleotides that will correctly match with a template base. Okay, and they have also do one more thing, that is they have lowered the reaction temperature. They have lowered the reaction temperature. So these two things they have done. They have used a combination of two different polymerase enzyme, and they have lowered the reaction temperature that used to be done in PCR process, like denaturation at 92 degrees Celsius, renaturation, that is gradually decreasing of the temperature up to I think 60, I think 45 maybe, and then annealing that is called annealing actually, and your synthesis temperature, which is normally about 70, 72 maybe. Okay, so they have lowered this reaction temperature, and they have used two different types of polymerase enzymes for modifying the PCR process. And by using the long PCR technique, we can able to uh, clone, and we can able to isolate our target DNA directly from the genome, and also we can clone. So it is an alternative for construction of gene library. I hope you have understood what I have said. Okay. The next thing that I will study is your about complementary DNA libraries. Now this part I will discuss in your next lecture. Okay, immediately just after studying this gene library, you have to go through this complementary DNA library. Do not make a gap here. Just after studying this, you have to go for the complementary DNA library. Okay. Okay. So that's all for now. After few minutes, I will discuss about the complementary DNA library.